So I recently got my hands on an iPhone XS in 256 gigabytes unlocked for just $85. This is an iPhone that used to cost $1,100 when it first came out almost 8 years ago. And this device can still run up to iOS 18, meaning that a lot of apps are still supported. So I want to challenge myself in today's video and see if this phone is still usable in 2026. Let's get right into it. Now, I randomly stumbled upon this listing on eBay. It was originally for $99 and I got the price down to $85. It was also in my city as well, so I was able to drive and pick it up on the same day. And this thing is absolutely mint. Like, I am surprised by whoever owned this phone before. They took very good care of it. There's not too many scratches on the body, only 92% battery health, and we're still on the original battery as well, which is pretty cool to see. And fun fact, this thing is still running iOS 15, which is gonna make this video even more interesting because now we can actually put this phone to the test and see if a lot of apps are still working on 5-year-old software. So let me go ahead and show you guys what my setup looks like. Now, I got Face ID on here working perfectly fine. This was of course the second iteration of Face ID, so it's gonna be a little slow compared to what you're used to today. You'll also notice on the lock screen when I turn on the flashlight, you can actually control the amount of pressure as you press the display. This feature is known as 3D touch, and fun fact again, this iPhone XS here is the last ever iPhone to feature 3D touch technology. It was a game changer in my opinion. I do think it was heavily underutilized by most people, hence why Apple removed it. It also made the device noticeably heavier as well, so one thing to consider if you are planning to pick up an iPhone XS. And I'm also signed into my Apple ID, iMessage is working as well, and the layout here just looks so different. We have this bar at the bottom with all of your quick apps. I completely forgot that it used to look like this. And of course, I am rocking the stock iOS 15 wallpaper. It is actually hilarious how Apple tried so hard to hide the notch. They completely blacked out the top of the wallpaper. It's just funny because now Apple just embraces dynamic island. But yeah, this was essentially my minimalistic setup in 2026, but now we need some apps on this phone so we can actually use it. But the truth is, guys, when I'm messing around with these old phones, a lot of things don't always work, and so I gotta research which apps work, and sometimes you gotta figure out a way to organize all of this. And that's why today's sponsor, Akiflow, has basically become my second brain. Akiflow is the ultimate productivity tool for anyone who finds it difficult to keep track of their to-do list. You can think of it as a centralized calendar that automatically syncs your tasks from your most commonly used apps via an integration. For example, I have Gmail and Todoist connected, so if I start an email or add a new task on my iPhone, it'll automatically sync into my universal inbox on Akiflow. Then I'm able to use time blocking, which is a technique where you can drag your tasks directly into your calendar and block time so you can actually get it done. This way, I'm able to hold myself accountable. I can't tell you guys how often I mentally add a task to my brain and I just forget about it, I get distracted, and I never end up actually completing that task. But Akiflow's task management helps me stay on top of my schedule. Akiflow also has an AI co-pilot that learns how you work and automatically organizes and color codes your tasks, which honestly helps me save a lot of time. Now, if you guys are interested in checking it out, I'll have a link down below. There is a 7-day free trial as well. And thank you so much to Akiflow for sponsoring today's video. Alright, now back to the iPhone XS. We'll be taking a look at some apps and features that are still working on iOS 15. Now, I wanted to first of all start off with social media. I think these are the apps that we'll probably be using the most. I can confirm that YouTube does work perfectly fine. It obviously will install the last supported version for iOS 15, so it's going to look a little different in terms of the actual interface when you're using the app, but most of the features are still there. You can watch shorts, picture-in-picture also works as well, which is pretty cool to see considering this is 5-year-old software, and all of the apps that you're seeing in this folder here are still working. And considering that this is iOS 15 and not 18, these apps are still working perfectly fine. So if you're using an iPhone XS and iOS 18, you should be just fine when it comes to app compatibility. Now, for any apps that don't actually end up working, there is technically a workaround for this. As long as you have installed the app on another Apple device in the past, you can go into your purchase history and you can click the little cloud icon with the arrow pointing down, and this way the App Store will be able to download the last supported version. But I do want to mention, guys, just keep in mind that when you are using outdated software, there's always a risk that your data could be compromised. So for example, I'm not going to log into my YouTube channel on this device device, and I encourage you guys to just exercise a bit of caution when it comes to using these social media apps and pretty much any banking apps for that matter, especially on outdated software, because there's always that risk. So definitely keep that in mind. Now, the next app I want to show you here is WhatsApp. I know I have a pretty large international audience and not everyone uses iMessage, but WhatsApp is working just fine on iOS 15. I was able to connect the iPhone XS as a companion device as well, and this way I can access my chats in real time on both my 17 Pro Max and the iPhone XS, which is pretty cool. Now, you'll notice, especially with apps that are made by Meta, like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, these apps tend to have much longer support, especially on older iOS versions. Even on iOS 6, for example, you can still sign into Instagram, although like 90% of the features don't actually work. It's still pretty cool that you're able to sign in. I think Meta recognizes a lot of people around the world still use these older iPhones. Not everyone is able to buy the newest iPhone, and so they still tend to support outdated iOS software, which is pretty impressive. But like I said, just because software is outdated doesn't always mean that it's safe. The other app here that we have is Tiny Wings. This is one of my favorite mobile games from my childhood. It is a paid game as well, but definitely recommend checking it out. This game just looks really good on this device. We have a Super Retina HD OLED display as well, only about 625 nits of maximum brightness, nothing worth the bragging about compared to the newer iPhones, but it'll be more than enough for indoor use. So yeah, enjoy this little gameplay here of me playing one of my favorite games. And next up on this list is Spotify. It works and signs in as well, but it's probably not going to be like this forever, especially on iOS 15. Spotify is known to cut the cord pretty early on when it comes to app support, but the good news is if you have an iPhone XS on iOS 18, it's probably going to continue to work at least for the next few years, if I had to guess. I mean, iOS 18 is still a pretty new iOS. I'm sure a lot of people are still using it, so I wouldn't be too concerned when it comes to Spotify support on the iPhone XS. Now, the next thing I wanted to quickly talk about was cellular connectivity. And now, the iPhone XS is the first iPhone with dual SIM. It features one physical SIM card slot as well as eSIM. There's no 5G, unfortunately, so if you're paying specifically for 5G on your cell phone plan, it might be a good idea to maybe find a cheaper plan or downgrade. I just want to make sure you guys aren't paying for a feature that you can't actually use. But yeah, I got my eSIM here transferred for this video. It looks pretty good, but we are on LTE, which is kind of a bummer. But yeah, it's pretty useful if you're in a country abroad with limited eSIM capability. You do have that option for a physical SIM card slot as well. Now, real quick, I did want to talk about what really makes the iPhone XS unique. I mean, this phone has an A12 Bionic chip, 4 gigs of RAM, no difference really in performance when you compare this up against the 6.5-inch XS Max. But yeah, with the XS Max, you obviously are going to get a much larger battery, better battery performance, but that's really going to depend on how much battery degradation a used iPhone XS Max already has, but obviously with time the battery will also get worse. And this was the last ever S device that Apple came out with, right? The iPhone XS. There was no iPhone 11s. Instead, they came out with the Pro model iPhones. And so it's definitely a very special device. We probably will never see another S model iPhone. So you can definitely pick this up for nostalgia as well. But you know, if you put this device next to the iPhone X, for example, it's really hard to tell which phone is which. There are a couple giveaways here, like the iPhone XS having an antenna at the top and the bottom and fewer microphone holes. But yeah, don't let the look of this phone stop you from getting it. This is a beautiful device. This is technically the 10-year anniversary iPhone design, and I think in 2026 this phone still looks amazing. Now, I also wanted to quickly mention the camera on this device isn't terrible. I mean, you get a dual 12 megapixel camera setup with your main camera and your telephoto lens giving you 2x optical zoom. I'd say for 2026 standards, it's not terrible, but for what I paid, $85, it's not a bad deal at all. But yeah, now the question becomes, what phone should I buy? I mean, you're probably watching this video because you're considering an iPhone XS or a XS Max, and I wanted to show you guys a quick little breakdown of what option might make the most sense for you. For example, you might be contemplating between an iPhone 11 Pro, an iPhone SE 3rd gen, or even an iPhone XS Max. But at the end of the day, guys, all of these devices are going to have the same amount of RAM and all either run iOS 26 or iOS 18. And so it's really going to come down to how much storage you want at the end of the day and how much battery you're looking for. The iPhone 11 Pro, for example, is a great option if you want to stick on the latest iOS, but at a base of 64 gigabytes of storage, it's probably going to cost you around $200 today. Similarly, if you don't care too much about being on iOS 26 and want a phone with like max storage, 512 gigabytes, then the iPhone XS Max honestly is not a bad option as well. I actually found a listing here for $200. So yeah, I highly recommend you guys check out eBay. It's what I use to buy like 95% of the phones that I have in my collection. Always sort by newly listed, and try not to bid, because those prices will usually just always get shot up unless you're okay with paying a little bit more. But I've had a lot of success in using the buy it now option and also making offers as well, so definitely keep that in mind. I also wanted to say the iPhone XS will not receive any more major updates. Obviously it's on iOS 18 now, but it's probably going to continue to receive security updates from time to time. The iPhone 11 series also probably isn't going to get iOS 27, so you're kind of going to be on the same boat regardless of which device you buy. But the cool thing about Apple is that their longest supported iPhone today in terms of security updates is the iPhone 6s. The last security update for this device came out in September of 2025. I'm not even kidding. That means that Apple has supported this iPhone for 10 years, which is just absolutely impressive. So realistically, these phones will probably get updates up until 2028 or 2029 if I had to guess. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been such a fun video to make. I have never owned an iPhone XS before, and I always wanted one when I was little, but I had an iPhone 10, so I couldn't justify the upgrade. But it's definitely pretty cool being able to use it today. But anyways, guys, if you have any questions about this phone, be sure to comment down below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.